white, you're white. If you're colored, you go with colored people. And keep it in your family. Don't put it in somebody else's.
Any white woman in this audience today, any white man in this audience today, in their right minds, don't want little black boys and little black girls coming around your home, schools, and churches looking to marry your sons and daughters, and in return introducing your grandchildren as little half-brown, kinky-haired Negro children.
Since the beginning of civilization, humans have always enslaved other humans. For 5 decades, black men, women, and children were enslaved by white men and women. However, on January 1st, 1863, Abraham Lincoln's final document of the Emancipation Proclamation would take its full effect. This abolished slavery from the United States. Despite the proclamation, blacks were treated unfairly. They were treated poorly until the Supreme Court overruled the Plessy v. Ferguson decision, the Brown v. Board of Education, on May 17, 1954.
With the Virginia Acts of 1924 came unfair and strict laws. They had deemed that someone was to be identified as being black if even a single drop of blood in their body was not Caucasian. This act was to enforce the law that stated interracial marriage was illegal. The reasoning for this was that many white men and women wanted to protect the whiteness from the negative effects of race mixing. Due to this act, relations between races were harmed throughout more than one generation. However, tensions began to decrease slowly as advocates against the acts began to take action. The Virginia Acts continued until the year 1967, when the Loving v. Virginia case drew to a close, with the Lovings claimed victories by the Supreme Court. In the year of 2001, the General Assembly denounced the act as racist.
Mildred and Richard Loving were one of the most famous interracial couples in American history. Mildred Loving was an African-American and Native American woman. Born on July 22, 1939, she spent most of her life as a civil rights activist. Her husband, Richard Loving, was a man of Caucasian descent. Born on October 29, 1933, Richard was 6 years old. As adolescents, they started as friends, got really close, and soon fell in love. On June 2, 1958, they got married. However, their relationship came with complications. On July 11, 1958, the two were arrested under Virginia law by Sheriff Garnett Brooks. Richard ended up spending the night in jail. With them pregnant, Mildred was spending several more nights there. The couple eventually pleaded guilty to violating the Virginia law. The Loving case is the core reason that interracial marriage is legal today. In 1963, when Mildred had had enough, she wrote Attorney General Robert Kennedy. Kennedy wrote back and referred the Lovings to the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, which accepted the couple's case. Their lawyers, Philip J. Hirschkopf and Bernard S. Cohen, were originally unsuccessful. They had the ruling by Judge Leon Bazile that Almighty God created the races white, black, yellow, Malay, and red, and he placed them on separate continents. The two lawyers then took the case to the Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals. After being rejected again, they went to the United States Supreme Court, which held verbal arguments on April 10, 1967. On June 12, 1967, the High Court agreed in favor of the Lovings, striking down Virginia's law and allowing the couple to live happily in Virginia, while also allowing interracial marriage in other states.
Even after interracial marriage was deemed legal, it wasn't socially accepted.
In a very small town in southeast Kansas where there wasn't a lot of biracial dating or marriage, I think at first they were apprehensive. What was the town going to think? Everyone was, nervous about, what they were going to think about me.
Although segregation was starting to end, mainstream racism was still in effect. Several people protested against this ruling, Muhammad Ali being the most outspoken on the subject.
I don't see no black and white couples in England or America walking around proud holding their children.
Being stared at and people judging you harshly in public, like this, is a very common thing. Interracial marriages result in biracial children, which stops most people from being in intermixed relationships because their children wouldn't look related to them. They also believed biracial children were ugly and resembled monkeys. Not only was it not accepted in society, but priests and preachers deemed it ungodly and impure to date someone not of your race. It's one thing if you're going against what society wants, but another when you're going against what your religion or God believes.
And let me tell you right up front, you young people, you want to marry a black man, you girls, don't ask me to do it, because I will not. I refuse. I cannot do it with a conscience toward God and look these quotes in the face.
But interracial couples and marriages of the 60s through the 80s had the worst of it. Sammy Davis Jr. married Swedish-born actress Mae Britt in 1960, when interracial marriages were forbidden by law in 31 U.S. states. While he was at JFK's inauguration, they were calling out Hollywood celebrities and he was booed, because at the time he was engaged to a white woman. JFK's father was worried that Davis's marriage to a white woman on the eve of an election might cost his son votes, so Davis had to postpone his wedding. During their marriage, the couple received hate mail and were targets of nasty jokes and vicious slurs. Taking a stand against something that most people disagreed with was very hard and usually resulted in exile with friends and family. It's much different fighting for a cause than fighting for your God-given right to love.
The Gallup poll of 2010 showed that the acceptance of interracial marriage is growing. However, it is not fully accepted yet. 96% of Americans that are 18 to 29 years of age approve of interracial marriage. 93% of Americans that are 30 to 49 years of age approve. 84% of Americans that are 50 to 64 years of age approve. And 70% of Americans 65 and older approve of interracial marriage. Support differed slightly in the geographical range as well. In the East, 86% of people approve of race mixing. In the South, 83% of people approve of race mixing. In the West, 93% of people approve of race mixing. And in the Midwest, 86% of people approve of race mixing. Although intermixing between blacks and whites is not completely accepted yet, people still engage in miscegenation. The popularity of interracial marriage is increasing. About 15% of all new marriages in the United States were between spouses of a different race. This is more than double the amount of marriages in 1980. If you look at all the newlyweds in today's world, interracial marriages have reached an all-time high. In 1980, only 3.2% of marriages were interracial. 43% of Americans say that interracial marriages have changed us for the better, 11% say that it was for the worse, and 44% say it has no difference on them.
Louisiana. And there was a guy in our class, an African-American guy, and he and I became very good friends and we dated. It was social dating. Wasn't very serious, but what I remember most about it was that we could not leave campus, because if we left campus, a white woman with a black man, he was in danger.
Even if you don't personally believe in race mixing, you have to acknowledge they fought hard for what they believed in: love. And they fought for it every day.
Love has no color.
Love has no race.
Love
Take
is
love.
love. Take my pain. Like an empty bottle takes the rain.